we could see some spots of rain across the moors, the Welsh mountains too. Similar story for northern England, some rain across the Pennines, maybe also the mountains of Northern Ireland. But the wettest of the weather really will be across parts of western Scotland, where across the east of Scotland we may again just see a few glimmers of sunshine. And really, as we go through the course of the day, very little changes. The wettest of the weather always across more western and northern areas of the country, with that rain turning increasingly heavy and persistent later on across northwestern Scotland, and combined with a strengthening wind here. Still always a chance of a few glimmers of sunshine the further east you are, and for all of us a milder feeling day, as I mentioned, highs potentially for some of us reaching 13 degrees. Looking ahead to Monday, a little bit more breeze across the whole country, so that hopefully will break up some of the cloud across England and Wales, and hopefully more of us seeing some sunshine on Monday, but still the risk of some further heavy rain across Scotland, that rain really not going very far anytime soon. That continues on to Tuesday with potentially unsettled weather more widely for all of us on Wednesday.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Producer Mel is in charge and director Sebastian is back. It's going to be a good one. It's 9 o'clock on television, on radio and online in the United Kingdom and across the world. This is Mark Dolan Tonight. In the big opinion, as notorious glamour model Lily Phillips plans to bed 1,000 men in a single day, is Britain now facing a moral collapse? I'll be answering that question in just a moment. In the big story, it's Sir Keir Starmer on the brink of a Brexit betrayal. More shocking details of the great British sellout in just a moment. Tonight, in the company of the busiest MP in Parliament, Rupert Lowe. Also, should Britain sacrifice its most beautiful countryside to tackle the housing crisis? Also tonight, as we get ready for some festive TV entertainment, I'll be joined by Britain's leading comedy historian to talk about the Carry On films and why many families will still be watching them this Christmas. And in an hour's time, in a Take at 10 special, the problematic prince strikes again. This time, Prince Andrew linked to an alleged Chinese spy. How much more harm can this man do to his family and his country? I'll be dealing with this national embarrassment in no uncertain terms at 10. And if you're watching Andrew, this will have you sweating. Yes, indeed. I'll be serving him up like a Pizza Express pizza at 10 o'clock. You won't want to miss it. So 2 hours of big opinion, big debate and big entertainment. This is the last Mark Dolan tonight on a Saturday of the year. Let's go out with a bang. And let me tell you that this show has a golden rule. We know about the golden rule. We don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it. So 2 hours of debate and let me tell you, a shocking story straight after the news headlines and Sophia Hill.
A very good evening. It's just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Sophia Hill with your latest headlines from the GB newsroom. The top story this evening, 5 people have been killed in shootings in and around a migrant camp near Dunkirk, according to French media. 2 migrants and 2 security agents are among those who have died in Lune Plage. A 22-year-old man is said to have handed himself into a police station following the incidents. The unnamed gunman's car has now been searched, where 3 more weapons were found. Now, Chinese money linked to Prince Andrew is now under investigation by MI5 as more details emerge about the embattled Duke's connection to an alleged spy. It's believed Prince Andrew invited the man in question, described as a close confidant, to Buckingham Palace, with their relationship reportedly dating back to 2012. The royal has now said he ceased all contact with the businessman in question and denied discussing anything of a sensitive nature. Meanwhile, Buckingham Palace have claimed it's had no power to scrutinise the Duke's finances. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper says the government will always take necessary action when it comes to the country's security.
Well, our security and intelligence agencies are continually vigilant for any threat to UK national security, whether that be around foreign influence, whether it be around espionage, whether it be around any security threat. And so, of course, we won't hesitate to take action in individual cases or more widely wherever any challenge arises.
Geminid meteor is expected to light up the night sky this weekend. The celestial spectacle, which returns every December, is one of the last of the year's major meteor showers and was visible in the early hours of Saturday morning. The meteor shower was spotted in parts of Northumberland and as far south as Somerset by keen night sky photographers. The shower has been known to produce more than 150 meteors per hour at its peak, but due to light pollution and other factors, the number is usually a little bit less. Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Ed Davey, has performed his Christmas single in Bath this afternoon. Davey was joined by the Bath Philharmonia Carers Choir at their Christmas concert at the Bath Forum. The single was written by 6 young carers and has climbed the charts since its release, with all proceeds going to the Carers Trust and Bath Philharmonia. Ed Davey has even pledged he'll do a skydive if the single hits 10,000 downloads next week. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Hill. I'll be back in an hour, but now it's back to Mark.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Brilliant stuff. Nice job, Sophia. Sophia returns in an hour's time. How are you? It is Saturday night. It is your perfect Saturday night in. Pour yourself a glass of something cold and bubbly because we got a lot of work to do. In my take at 10, how do you solve a problem like Prince Andrew? Lots to get through. But first, it's my big opinion. Now, the decision by a young woman on the erotic website OnlyFans to sleep with 100 men in one evening is not heroic, it's not groundbreaking, it's not innovative. It's a tragedy. It's also reckless, irresponsible, deeply immoral and dangerous. Now, of course, it's a free country. This is a grown woman who invited these chaps to pop round for more than just a cup of Bovril. And it's absurd for feminist writers like Julie Bindel, with whom I normally agree, to claim that it is somehow the men's fault and they should be locked up. Now, I'll be honest, I don't think much of these lads to participate in this grim orgy doesn't reflect brilliantly on their character or values. But let's be clear that no law was broken, and men being men, if something like that is offered on a plate, it will be taken. But this story reflects a wider and more troubling issue than men's shallow sexual opportunism. It reflects the spiritual collapse of our society, where the act of making love, once delayed until the wedding night, is now an everyday marketable commodity. This intimate exchange, and once the expression of love, or at least lust, is now a joyless transaction. I was reading in the paper today of a new word, snowmanning. Have you heard that word, snowmanning? It is the syndrome in which women are intimate with a guy only for him to cut off all contact the next day, so-called melting away like a snowman. And this is progress, is it? Also, with regard to this story about this young woman, there are some practicalities here. I don't want to think of the injuries that she has inflicted on her own body, not to mention the risk of sexually transmitted diseases with the likes of chlamydia and even the medieval malady of gonorrhea on the increase. The other tragedy of this story is the messaging that lies underneath it. Lily Phillips, this young woman, can wreck her own life if she must. But this vomit-inducing stunt will be seen by millions around the world. It will amplify misogyny, with men once again seeing women as worthless pieces of meat to be consumed for their own fleeting pleasure. And it will tell girls around the world that this is all they and their body are worth. Western society has lost its values, has lost its decency, has lost its moral compass, and it's hard to take that lying down. Should the men go to jail? Your reaction, gbnews.com/your say. Don't forget, by the way, Britain's busiest MP, Rupert Lowe, is with me in just a few minutes to talk about a Brexit betrayal and also illegal immigration. But first, tonight's top pundits. We have TV fitness legend, the Green Goddess herself, Diana Moran, respected academic and political commentator, Dr. Lisa Mackenzie, and leading journalist and communications advisor, Linda Jubilee. Well, it's great to see all three of you, and a welcome return to the Mark Dolan Tonight sofa to Diana Moran. Great to see you. Diana, are you well?
I'm much better, thank you very much indeed.
Well, you're glowing tonight, and there's something festive about that green.
Well, that's what I thought, with your new red sofa here and a bit of the green.
Well, you've definitely brightened the place up. Now, you brought some glamour, which is a rare thing here. Diana, there's nothing glamorous about that video.
I think it's absolutely disgusting. I am an older woman, and I've spent all my life trying to be proud of being a woman, not put down by men, not thought of as a bit of meat for the men, and I am absolutely furious about it. It's disgusting.
Do you think the men should go to jail?
No, I don't think necessarily. No, not necessarily, but I do think...
What do you think of the men? I mean, if it was a son of yours, what would you say to him?
I would be disgusted, absolutely disgusted, but it was their choice.
Linda, you're nodding. You think the men should actually face some kind of consequence for this?
Of course they should, yes. Let me just say, my one observation was, this has all gone on in the week that we have seen Giselle Pellicot an enormously courageous woman who was drugged and then raped by more than 50 men.
This was in France.
In France, is now of global renown for her courage in the same week that this is going on. Now, that woman was clapped in and out of court as a measure of solidarity because we all are outraged at what went on. This woman will only earn one kind of clap. I bet you.
Blimey. Well, listen, I think I've got to say she probably will need to visit her doctor at some point. Where do you start with this, Lisa?
I don't know. I watched the video at the end when she comes out of the room, and I was heartbroken, actually. I really was. When I saw her, she was broken, actually. And I think any young woman who looks at that and then starts to think, you know...
That's the point.
Yeah, she was broken. I know she was broken. I believe that she's going to do 1,000 men now. I think that's the
in 24 hours.
Yeah,
crazy.
That's
crazy.
How much money she's going to make.
But think about this.
She's broken.
But think about this. My daughter's only 23, and we all know that young women of her age and young women at our... When we were younger...
She's that age, she's
exactly that age.
Yeah.
But when we were younger... We have to deal with women, you know, I don't want to sound sort of too old-fashioned, but sexualised or objectified.
Absolutely.
That's what this is doing. It's sexualising and objectifying.
Where it was.
Exactly. She's dialing it back.
Well, I mean, I would say...
I'm not sure she's...
Lisa.
Do you think... I'm not sure she's probably aware of the damage that she's doing.
She's just raking in the money.
That's right.
But because when she comes out that room... I saw a very broken young woman there.
And she did burst into tears,
Yes, she did. I thought she was
You don't think she's broken?
No, I don't think she's broken.
Well, she will be after 1,000 men, won't she?
Oh, blimey. That's something I'll never unsee.
It's just awful.
You don't think she's broken?
I don't think she's broken. But what she's doing is she's breaking the morals.
She's breaking other women.
Other women.
So you think she's making life harder for the female sex?
Much harder.
Why is that? Why is she making life harder for all women?
Because she has objectified herself, and the real problem young women and older women have got now is that there is so much misogyny around, and misogyny comes from men treating women like objects. If they treated them like human beings, they wouldn't be misogynists. And that's why this is so terrifying, because it's sending such a severe signal to everywhere.
I think what Julie Bindel has said this week has been quite interesting. She's had a lot of stick, actually, for saying that, because she's thrown it back to the men, hasn't she?
Yeah.
And I think within all these conversations that I've heard, very few are throwing it back to the men and saying, well, who is it who's paying for OnlyFans? Who is it that's sort of pushing this content with money?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. They should be prosecuted too, but you really, really need to deal with what she is doing to women.
How can you justify prosecution? I mean, I don't think much of those lads.
Nor do I.
But they've not broken the law, have they?
Well, we don't know exactly whether they've broken the law. You'd have to have... You'd have to... Yeah, you'd have to...
They haven't broken the law then.
Well,
no.
But you can still sexually assault a sex worker.
You can.
She's not being assaulted. She's putting herself there for them to violate.
Well, she is profiting from it, so you don't know.
The thing is, Lisa, you can't stop this woman from having this job and doing these stunts, can you?
I mean, we can't stop.
But like the authorities, should there be a law?
I mean, I would say no, just because
there's only one woman and maybe very few women doing this kind of thing. But it shouldn't be webcast or broadcast or go out on social media. You shouldn't have any kind of platform for this kind of behaviour. None at all.
But this is what OnlyFans does. This is what it's there for.
I mean, I find the video abhorrent, but why should it be prevented from being seen? Linda, because if you look at...
Because it's obscene.
If you see what happened, it is obscene in the scale of it, but it's actually pretty tame compared to some of the truly dark stuff that's on the internet, which would probably make you go pale overnight.
I think we have got some issues with our younger men, actually.
We know we have, and we don't really know how to deal with them. Not effectively.
There have always been issues with younger men.
I agree, but they've got worse.
We've had rules and regulations as a society growing up, and that's all just being
because on the one hand you've got this woman, on the other hand you've got people like Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate, I mean, all this does is validate the role he plays.
Now, Lisa, what I want to ask you is, what does this say about our society? Have we lost our moral compass that this is normal now?
I'm not going to say moral, because I don't like the word moral, but I think we have lost something.
Values.
Values, but this young woman's family, where are they?
Yeah.
Why is someone not saying to her?
You have to wonder.
You know,
but of course, they don't want to dictate, I suppose, to their daughter, but she's made a bad choice. But we're focusing on this young woman, but I think it reflects where we are as a society.
Yeah, but
now.
that's the whole
We've lost our morals, or we're losing our morals.
And why is that?
Something like
why
this.
is that, Diana?
Well, maybe it's to do with religion as well.
Yeah.
I'm changing the subject slightly here, but this is Christmas time.
Yeah.
Where do you see a nativity around the place at the moment?
Yeah.
There's all the Christmas trees, all that glitter.
Oh, you're barely allowed to say the word Christmas anymore.
Absolutely.
The supermarkets don't call it Christmas.
I haven't yet
We've got a
seen
nativity in
a
my
babe
village.
in arms.
No, well, I mean, my mother's putting the crib together at the moment, and it's a beautiful thing. In fact, that little baby Jesus at my mother's house, it looks a tiny bit like me when I was small.
Where I live.
Just saying, just putting it out there.
Where I live, in the wonderful county of Nottinghamshire, we've got baby Jesus and
Well, I'm pleased to hear that.
No, it's very important. But I think
is he out on the town tonight?
Who?
The baby Jesus? Because it's Nottingham.
Well, it'll be in the village. The children like to go and look at him.
Linda, last word briefly, if you can.
Well, I do think that this does amplify deep concerns we've got about the way society is going at the moment. It's not that it's just this one case, it's what it says about the loss of our values.
I agree. I think you'll find this horrible story is the tip of the iceberg. Don't forget Rupert Lowe waiting in the wings. But first, it's time for your Great British Giveaway. And your chance to become our biggest ever winner with an incredible £50,000 in tax-free cash. An amazing sum of money that could make your new year your best new year. Here's how you do it.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
OK, folks, in the big story, is Sir Keir Starmer on the brink of a Brexit betrayal plus illegal immigration? The real-world consequences. Who better to draw attention to that than Britain's busiest and most committed MP, Rupert Lowe of Reform UK. He's live next.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
Today I am joined by documentary maker Daniel Wing, who is still trying to find out who murdered his mother 30 years on. He's also created a documentary called Who Murdered You, Mum? Daniel, can you just tell us the story of what happened to your mother, what you know?
So when I was 1 year old in 1992, my mum Tina was murdered. My dad went on trial for it and was acquitted. And the case went unsolved and has been unsolved for 32 years. My nan, who raised me, amazing woman, passed away sadly 2 years ago, and that kind of sent me on a quest for answers.
So your documentary then, what are you hoping to achieve with it?
I am fighting for justice for my mum. I have had a meeting with the police and they are looking to see what they have and are looking to reopen investigation if they can find new and compelling evidence. What's interesting now is speaking to other families who are actually going through the trauma and experience of murder.
Yeah.
My mum didn't get the opportunity to be a mum. What would my life have been? I'm now 33 years old with no parents, and it's that kind of thing. It's a very, I guess, lonely journey in what I'm experiencing. That's why I wanted to make this film, because I hadn't had the opportunity to be able to grieve my mother and know who she was, and that was really what this journey was about. It was about finding out who she was and being able to grieve. Everyone had the opportunity, although terrible circumstances, to be able to go to the funeral and have that moment, and I never had that opportunity.
The People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, a big reaction to my big opinion. I believe that Western values have gone into the bin. We are in moral decay as a result of that awful story of that woman sleeping with 100 men in one evening. She's planning 1,000 in a day next year. Well, Gary says, don't blame the men. I wouldn't do it, but if it's offered, some men will take it. How about this, Catherine? So a woman chooses to do this, and the two ladies on the end of your panel trying to turn it around on men. There you go. How about this, Glynis? Mark, the crime of outraging public decency still exists. I believe that woman, the men and the OnlyFans should all be charged with it. Thank you. That keep your opinions coming. gbnews.com/your say. It's time now for the big story. Now, the European Union has set the price for a post-Brexit trade deal as the Prime Minister seeks a reset in our relationship with Brussels. According to a leaked classified document seen by the Daily Telegraph, the EU will demand Britain's surrenders to free movement for students and further access to our fishing waters. So is this a welcome recalibration in order to boost trade and cooperation with the bloc, or a Brexit surrender? Who better to ask than the Reform UK Member of Parliament for Great Yarmouth, Rupert Lowe. Rupert, great to see you. Thank you for joining us. You're a successful entrepreneur. What's the problem with seeking smoother trade with our European neighbours?
Well, Mark, let me start by saying that is a rascal of a tie you're wearing this evening.
Well, thank you so much.
I would have put my sunglasses on if I'd known you were going to be wearing that.
Would Nigel wear this? I don't think so.
Who knows? Who knows? Well, look, the answer to this is it's quite extraordinary. 17.4 million people voted in 2016 to take back our sovereignty. The Conservatives singularly failed to deliver that. And now Keir Starmer, having upset the pensioners, the farmers, the small businesses and the private education system, which is one of the best in the world, he's now seeking to upset those voters who voted to take back our sovereignty. I think you have to watch what the hands are doing, not what the mouth is saying. And it seems their intent, rather like Gordon Brown, sold all our gold reserves at $260 an ounce just before gold shot up. It seems that Keir Starmer and his front bench are keen to jump back into the hands of a Europe that is failing financially, that is going to the right, and at the end of the day, just at the same time as the Americans are about to put a large dose of smoke down the socialist rat hole and expose them, see them all charging out of their burrows into the sunlight. So I just think the timing is extraordinary. To be suggesting that he's going to give away fishing rights in return for cuddling up to Europe now. As you probably know, nothing, in my view, summarises the decline of Britain more than the fact that we have the richest fishing grounds in the world, and yet we're a net importer of fish. So I think this is another poke in the eye for the British public, and I hope that more and more voters will realise that the only way to solve the problem is to vote for reform, vote for a party from outside the existing political establishment, and let's see the return of common sense and government that is basically in the interests of the British people and nobody else.
But I think, Rupert, the Prime Minister could reasonably argue that our trade deal with the European Union is suboptimal. He wants to support those small and medium-sized businesses who are struggling to do business with our biggest trading partner. Now, I'm not against a trade deal with the US. I think you probably can have your cake and eat it. Why shouldn't the Prime Minister do what he can to improve those trade links with the EU?
Well, look, I think, Mark, we all know the EU has been trying to punish the British electorate for ultimately deciding to leave the club. If they didn't do that, then I think there'd be a lot of other people, particularly people like the Danes, who would leave very quickly. And I think they're near breaking point. You see the euro is weak, the German economy is weak, France is bankrupt, and there's chaos in Europe now. So we're far better to be paddling our own canoe. I think, you know, if you look at our trade with other parts of the world is doing extremely well, and that's very underreported. So I think, even though I'm very worried about our economy next year, thanks to what Rachel Reeves has done in terms of the tax rises she's forcing on the private sector in order to prop up a failing public sector, I think, you know, confidence is dropping off very, very fast, and I think we're in for the mother of all recessions, maybe even a depression this coming year. So I'm worried about that, but I think it may be bad here, but it'll be 10 times worse in Europe. So no, I think this is Labour misreading the room as usual, and ultimately, you know, the British people will punish them at the next attempt, next ballot box.
And now the Prime Minister's clear that he has no plans to reverse Brexit. They'll also argue that they inherited the mother of all mess-ups when it comes to the economy itself. Briefly, Rupert, before we get to immigration, how irreversible might this government's actions be in regard to our relationship with the EU?
I mean, no parliament should be able to bind a following parliament, Mark, so hopefully they won't be able to now reverse what the British people voted for. I mean, in essence, this is the problem with the government now. The government has failed to understand that it is the servant of the people, not the master. And the electorate has the opportunity now in Britain to vote out of power those people who don't serve them well. They wouldn't be able to do that if they were part of this sort of supranational, global, socialist, post-war sort of centrally planned economic experiment, which is failing. So we've now got our sovereign borders back. Sadly, we haven't taken advantage of that yet. I would like to see the fishing industry in places like Great Yarmouth and all the way along our coastline rebuilt. I'd like to see the fish processing industries rebuilt. I'd like to see more employment here in industries like fishing, and you know, where one job at sea is worth 9 on land. So, but that won't happen until we have people in power who understand the dynamics of building businesses, who understand the dynamics of cutting the size of the state and effectively fostering the private sector, rather than punishing the private sector in order to reward what I think is an increasingly failing public sector. Wherever you look, it's failing. And it's not for lack of money, Mark. I mean, the public sector now accounts for somewhere between 46 and 48% of GDP, which is far too high.
Well, most definitely. Look, you mentioned our public sector. Our public sector needs cheap labour. We have an ageing population. But given your concerns about current levels of legal net migration, how do you square that circle?
Well, I'm concerned about illegal migration. I think you've probably seen me talking about deporting. I think they should be detained and deported. I mean, illegal by its very nature is illegal. And I can't see why we would encourage people to come here illegally and punish those people who are trying to come here legally. The legal issue is not being well managed by the government, because at the end of the day, they promise less legal immigration and they're waving in very, very large numbers of people, as we saw from the last set of figures, where it looks like, you know, a city bigger than that of Bristol is coming into the UK each year, and that's net. So we're losing the best people. You know, there are 2,500 people queuing to get into Monaco at the moment. God knows how many are queuing to get into to Dubai, Italy, Greece,
Paris,
Portugal, all these other countries. We're losing our best people, and that is not good. So, look, we need change. We need a government that respects enterprise, and the biggest problem is not a lack of cheap labour. It's the fact that there are 9 million people of working age who aren't working, Mark, and that's the problem we've got to solve. Those people are already here.
But if
and
you
they're costing us a fortune.
If Reform UK win the next election, never say never, what would you say to those people who are of working age but not active in the economy, that they've got to work? What if they have mental health issues or are ill?
Well, there are a lot of them signing themselves off with mental health issues. You've probably seen a lot of people sign themselves off since, you know, that disastrous COVID lockdown response, which again the government made huge errors in. We tried to have a debate on that last Thursday in Parliament. We got one, Esther McVeigh and myself, and the government filibustered, put in 3 meaningless ministerial statements. Then we had some meaningless debate, and in the end, our MHRA debate was cancelled. So again, mental health issues, there are people who've got mental health issues, but nowhere near as many people who appear to be signing up, almost self-certifying. And in the end, what we've got to do is encourage people to work, reward those people who work hard and actually contribute, and penalise those people who basically are tire kickers and don't want to put their back into it and generate wealth, employment, and you know, well-being.
OK, Rupert, now look, I'm going to get to our final question. So grateful that you're on, because you've got to be the busiest, most proactive member of Parliament at the moment in the chamber. You've been pursuing the authorities, in my view, about, you know, the real cost to the economy and society of legal and illegal immigration. But can we just talk about the party leadership at the moment? Because the highly respected and well-connected former Times journalist Ian Martin has posted the following on X today, saying that Nigel Farage is out to destroy Kemi Badenoch quickly and is seeking to install a Tory leader that he and his gang can control. Is Nigel right? Is this chap Ian Martin right, Rupert? Would somebody like Robert Jenrick be easier to do business with?
Look, I think Kemi's got a huge job, Mark. I mean, as I've said, she's got to, first of all, basically cut about 95% of Tory party head office out. She's then got to purge herself of probably a very large percentage of her MPs who, thanks to David Cameron, they're Lib Dems, not Tories. So I think a lot of this speculation, you know, in the same way that there was some idiot writing a thing about a rift between Nigel Farage and I, is complete rubbish. You know, I think there's lots of people wanting to undermine Reform's success at the moment, and you've probably seen, you know, in the bookies, Nigel, I think, is now, on current betting, he's the favourite to be the next Prime Minister, which, again, as our Reform messiah, he has every right to be. But I don't think, until the Tory party has cleansed itself, that it's in a position really to govern the country in the way the country needs to be governed. So I think what will happen is we will end up being the party which attracts those Tories with common sense. You know, we're described as far right. We're not far right. I don't think I'm far right. I'm just a provincial businessman who wants to see common sense and logic prevail in the country, not
Rupert.
DEI and a load of nonsense.
Rupert, before we go, would you say that you are more to the right of Nigel Farage? Because Nigel was reluctant to talk about deportations of people that shouldn't be in this country. There are a few people online who are suggesting that you're outshining your boss. Is that true?
Well, I'm not trying to, Mark. I think we're trying, there's 5 of us, we see each other a lot. We're all playing our part in driving the Reform agenda, and we've got a huge job to do. We've got a chairman, Zia Youssef, who's putting in hopefully all of the structure beneath us. And, you know, we are a new party. We're a bit rough around the edges. We don't deny that, and we'll probably make some mistakes, but we'll make honest mistakes, and we'll make mistakes which are based on putting the interests of the British people at the top of the agenda. We're not going to be encouraging the sort of things like, cuddling back up to the EU and doing things, which damage the interests of pensioners, damage the interests of small businesses, farmers, and probably the best educational system in the world. So I think what Labour think they're doing, but if they carry on with this, they're going to be brutally punished at the next election.
Rupert, what a treat to have you on the show. Thank you for the sartorial compliment, and we'll catch up soon. We know you're busy, so thanks for giving up a chunk of your Saturday evening. Let me tell you, by the way, that I actually haven't met a member of Parliament that doesn't work hard. It is actually a tougher job than it looks. Now, during Advent, as we count down to Christmas Day, we're hearing from church ministers across the country. Every day they have a special message for you to celebrate the festive season.
The GB News Advent Calendar, Day 14.
My name's Marcus. I'm a priest in the Church of England. Have you ever experienced one bad thing after another in a very short space of time? Maybe the car breaks down, then your washing machine breaks down, then you get sick, then you find out your loved one has been diagnosed with cancer, and so on and so on. When you think life could get harder, it gets harder. It will be easy to despair and lose hope and see these bad things as a sign that God is against you. But this time of Christmas, we are reminded that God came down in the person of Jesus Christ to suffer with us and for us. It is a sign that tells us that God is for us and not against us. It tells us that nothing can separate us from the love of God. God hasn't promised to give us an easy life on earth, but He has promised to be with us through all the good and the bad in life, to be our strength, to be our peace, and to be our joy through it all. This is Emmanuel, God with us.
Absolutely wonderful stuff. Merry Christmas, one and all. Set your diaries, by the way. Tomorrow, 9 o'clock, the last Mark Dolan Tonight of the year. We're going out with a bang. But next up, should Britain sacrifice its most beautiful countryside to tackle the housing crisis? That's next.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead to Sunday, it's a return to the rather grey skies for most of us. The wettest of the weather will be up across parts of Scotland. And for all of us, thanks to the winds coming in from the Atlantic, it will be feeling a good deal milder than it has been of late. As we return to Saturday evening, we will hang on to some clear skies initially across the far southeast, but cloud and rain across the west will spread across all parts during the course of the night. So we end the night really rather cloudy, some hill fog around, with the wettest of the weather really across the west. But note the temperatures, most of us seeing temperatures no lower than around 8 or 9 degrees. So it'll be a mild start to Sunday, but a rather cloudy one. We may well just see a few glimmers of sunshine across the far southeast and across East Anglia too, where further west across England we could see some spots of rain across the moors, the Welsh mountains too. Similar story for Northern England, some rain across the Pennines, maybe also the mountains of Northern Ireland. But the wettest of the weather really will be across parts of Western Scotland, where across the east of Scotland we may again just see a few glimmers of sunshine. And really, as we go through the course of the day, very little changes. The wettest of the weather always across more western and northern areas of the country, with that rain turning increasingly heavy and persistent later on across northwestern Scotland, and combined with a strengthening wind here. Still always a chance of a few glimmers of sunshine the further east you are, and for all of us a milder feeling day, as I mentioned, highs potentially for some of us reaching 13 degrees. Looking ahead to Monday, a little bit more breeze across the whole country, so that hopefully will break up some of the cloud across England and Wales, and hopefully more of us seeing some sunshine on Monday, but still the risk of some further heavy rain across Scotland, that rain really not going very far anytime soon. That continues on to Tuesday, with potentially unsettled weather more widely for all of us on Wednesday.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, Sir Keir Starmer has said that homes must have a higher priority than nature and the environment, as ministers outlined reforms that could allow a vast amount of building on England's green belt. A shake-up of planning rules revealed on Thursday means that councils have been given mandatory targets to deliver a total of 370,000 homes a year. So, is building on some of our most beautiful countryside worth it to tackle the housing crisis? Let's get the views of housing expert and broadcaster Charlie Lambdin. Charlie, thank you for joining us. Do you support this move by the Labour government to build on the green belt?
It's completely unnecessary, actually. It's very important for people to understand that the shortage of homes that we have at the moment, which is very acute, especially in some built-up areas, is not because there aren't enough homes. So according to the ONS's own website, England and Wales alone have 1.6 million currently unoccupied dwellings. And only 10% of those are second homes. So that's 1.5 million that actually meets the target that they want. 1.5 million unoccupied dwellings. These are long-term vacant dwellings. So that's the first thing that would be a much easier way to target to free up some desperately needed housing accommodation. Secondly, there's an awful lot of people at the higher end of the market in larger houses who would move if it weren't for stamp duty. So there's an enormous amount of unused occupancy in houses, which would get freed up very quickly. There are people who would like to downsize, but stamp duty is just eye-watering. And so scrapping stamp duty would be a second shot in the arm for the housing crisis. It would help very, very quickly. And thirdly, and actually this is where the housing crisis is most acute in the social sector, right? So what the government needs to do, and Angela Rayner has not been clear about this yet, is that they need to actually focus not on just building homes, they need to build social homes. The government needs to build and own its own social housing stock and stop relying on the private rented sector to meet its obligations for two reasons. First of all, that forces prices in the private rented sector up. And if you took the social housing obligations off the private renter sector, it would ease rents. And secondly, there is an enormous £1.7 billion a year temporary accommodation bill being paid by the taxpayer that is putting some councils into bankruptcy. And that money, if it was spent on building social homes specifically, to meet the government's own housing obligations, rather than spending £1.7 billion giving it to landlords and bed and breakfast owners and hotel owners, then that would be a much better long-term solution and better for the taxpayer as well. So
I don't want to interrupt you, but I wanted to ask you, I mean, all that makes a lot of sense. At the risk of making it political, to what extent is the current rate of legal net migration into the country a problem?
Well, I mean, the problem is the total population, right? Whether it's coming from us having babies, which we're not doing, or whether it's coming from very, very high levels of immigration, which is currently happening. The problem is the total, right? But still, so whether or not legal migration is brought down, whether or not illegal migration is stopped, that's obviously going to have a massive bearing on the requirements for housing going forward. But in the absence of any action being taken on that, people still need the housing crisis solved now.
Yeah.
So, and there are ways to do that. But changing planning permission and changing planning rules and starting new builds, even if it worked, which it won't, they won't meet their targets and they won't get the planning reforms that they want. We wouldn't start to see the benefits of that for at least 5 to 10 years. So this is all poker posturing. And what Angela Rayner needs to say is, we are taking an emergency footing for building social homes to meet the government-owned social housing obligations. And if she does that, we don't need to build on the green belt at all.
If only you were the housing minister, Charlie. Do join us again soon. An illuminating conversation. Your reaction, please. gbnews.com/you'll say, building on the green belt, yes or no. But next up, as we get ready for some festive TV entertainment, I'll be joined by Britain's leading comedy historian to celebrate the Carry On films, which many families will be watching this Christmas.
I'm Patrick Christie's. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Apparently, in the Mail, page 5, hard-pressed bosses already having to deal with deadlines, red tape and staff who won't actually come into the office over Christmas. And they're saying that Christmas parties this year are going to be as lame as ever because everyone's afraid of basically getting cancelled or misbehaving or getting sacked for their behaviour. Would you risk it, Trey, at Christmas?
Do you know, I've actually never had a normal job in my life, so I wouldn't last a second because I'm not very politically correct. But it must be horrendous, really, because rather than enjoying yourself, you're having to completely always censor yourself. And it might be the most innocent of stuff that's said to someone that they then take offence to, which means you're going to probably just keep your mouth shut, which doesn't sound like the best of parties, does it, really?
No. Tricky one, isn't it? Because you're not at work, so it's not an office issue if, you know, some banter and it's taken the wrong way. But still, it's still a work environment, isn't it?
Yeah. If HR shows up, it's a work party. It's a work event.
HR shows up, I'm gone.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. And so even for us this year, first of all, it's the first year we're calling it a holiday party. I don't know how I felt about that.
Really? What, your company's doing that?
Yeah, they're calling it a holiday party.
Oh, no, well, no.
Yeah, I know. I voted against.
So they got rid of the word
Christmas.
Why?
Because we want to be inclusive.
How's it not inclusive to call it Christmas?
I know. Trust me.
Are you still going to go? I wouldn't bother going. I'd say no.
I am going to go, but I'm going to go dressed as Mrs. Claus, and it's going to be Christmassy, and I'm going to make sure that Christmas enters the door with me.
Yeah, you spread that Christian vibe.
100%. But outside of that, there is that element of HR showing up, and HR will be sober, and they've already prepped them to say, like, listen, this isn't your party. HR can have their party. This is your hangout.
Yeah.
Make sure everyone's being PC.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, plenty of disappointment about what's on offer over the Christmas TV season. I mean, GB News will be amazing, wall-to-wall festive coverage, but BBC, ITV, people are not happy, which is why many will be turning to some of the old classics, not least the Carry On films, the most successful UK comedy franchise of all time. Take a listen.
Doctor! Hey, what is it? Seasick. Well, what did that? The captain's cake. Was it the chop suey? And the Bombay duck? I know exactly how you feel. All right, I'll give you an injection. No, please, not again. Well, I'll get you one of those special tablets. Wait there. Huh?
They don't make him like that anymore. Well done, Mariana. Lovely clip. Well, to give us some pointers as to which Carry On film to fire up on the 25th, who better to ask than the renowned comedy historian Robert Ross, who is the co-author of a brand new book celebrating the brilliant actresses in those films. The Carry On Girls is out now. And Robert, really good to see you again. Robert, thanks for joining us. What makes the Carry On films so enduringly popular?
Gosh, how long we got? 10 minutes. They're just basically seaside postcards come to life. There's no malice in there. There's no unpleasantness. It's just fun, laughter. The actors are just the cream of comedy. And they just are perfect for all year round. But obviously, they made a load of TV specials for Christmas. So, you know, Carry On and Christmas has been together for 50 years, really. So it's a good way to put your feet up, have a turkey sandwich and have a good belly laugh at Sid James and Kenneth Williams and Hattie Jakes and all these other brilliant comedy actors.
Well, that's right. The casting was absolutely peerless. The writing was great as well. How big were those films back in the day?
Oh, huge. In their peak period in 1968, 69, you know, halfway through the 20-year run of the original series, Carry On Up the Khyber was #2 in the box office charts of the cinema ratings, and #1 was Carry On Camping. So, you know, they were the most popular, not just comedies, they were the most popular films. They were often beating the James Bond films at that time.
Imagine.
They were made on a very economic, not cheap. The producer, Peter Rogers, and co-creator always said they were never cheap, but economic. They were made beautifully on budget, and they made their money back within the first sort of weekend at the cinemas. So they were hugely successful. I think people now tend to think of them just as television filling fodder, really, but they were made for the big screen. That was the whole point of them.
Well, definitely. And also, I think they're like sort of Seinfeld or The Office in that they're endlessly rerun, and they always will be. Can you tell us about the amazing partnership of the director, Gerald Thomas, and producer, Peter Rogers?
Well, they made all of the films. Peter Rogers was a very experienced writer before he became a film producer. Gerald Thomas, the director, was a very experienced film editor. So Gerald Thomas could make a film. I mean, Ken Russell, the brilliant sort of infant Talabal of British cinema, said it was impossible to make a film in 6 weeks. Gerald Thomas made a film in 6 weeks 31 times over for the Carry On series. So they were churned out wonderfully efficiently at Pinewood Studios, you know, and they had a format that worked, and they didn't muck about with the format for 20 years. It developed over 20 years. You know, Carry On Sergeant, the very first one, which the older I get, the more I think is probably the greatest of them all, was really sort of inspired by the brilliant ITV situation comedy The Army Game, which starred William Hartnell. They brought William Hartnell 5 years before he became Doctor Who to star in Carry On Sergeant, and it was a massive, massive success. It cost them £74,000 to make, and it made that money back very, very quickly, and that was the third most popular film. But Peter Rogers and Gerald Thomas always said, you don't start out to make a film series. You make one, Carry On Sergeant. They made another one, Carry On Nurse, and another one, and another one, and another one. They carried on for 20 years.
Most definitely. And the gags were just memorable, weren't they? I mean, you've got Kenneth Williams as Julius Caesar saying, infamy. They've all got it in for me. And what about that Sid James as Henry VIII saying, after 5 years of marriage, the only thing I'm having off is her head. The scripting of the Carry On films was a lot more sophisticated than they were given credit for.
Well, I mean, you know, they reheated the jokes. You quoted two from Talbot Rothwell, who wrote most of the Carry-Ons, who was a brilliant gag master. He'd written for great musical people like the Crazy Gang and Arthur Askey and Terry Thomas. So he was honed in this sort of slap and tickle one-liners, and the Carry-Ons just allowed him to have fun with history. You mentioned Carry On Cleo there, Carry On Henry. You know, they were just, once they could carry on in any topic, they could just go on forever, which they did, really.
Robert, I could go on forever with you. I didn't keep my promise of a 10-minute chat, but we're getting you back in the new year with Jeffrey Holland. Listen, really a couple of seconds. You love Carry On Sergeant. Can you give me two other really good ones that we should watch this Christmas?
Oh, okay. Carry On Doctor. Always good to see the National Health Service celebrated in comedy. Carry On. I suppose Carry On Camping is the one, isn't it?
Classic. Robert's book is out now. It is called The Carry On Girls. In my Take at 10, I'll be dealing with Prince Andrew.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast on the Metaverse. Looking ahead to Sunday, it's a return to the rather grey skies for most of us. The wettest of the weather will be up across parts of Scotland, and for all of us, thanks to the winds coming in from the Atlantic, it will be feeling a good deal milder than it has been of late. As we return to Saturday evening, we will hang on to some clear skies initially across the far southeast, but cloud and rain across the west will spread across all parts during the course of the night. So we end the night really rather cloudy, some hill fog around, with the wettest of the weather really across the west. But note the temperatures, most of us seeing temperatures no lower than around 8 or 9 degrees. So it'll be a mild start to Sunday, but a rather cloudy one. We may well just see a few glimmers of sunshine across the far southeast and across East Anglia too, where further west across England we could see some spots of rain across the moors, the Welsh mountains too. Similar story for northern England, some rain across the Pennines, maybe also the mountains of Northern Ireland, but the wettest of the weather really will be across parts of western Scotland, where across the east of Scotland we may again just see a few glimmers of sunshine. And really, as we go through the course of the day, very little changes. The wettest of the weather always across more western and northern areas of the country, with that rain turning increasingly heavy and persistent later on across northwestern Scotland, and combined with a strengthening wind here. Still always a chance of a few glimmers of sunshine the further east you are, and for all of us a milder feeling day, as I mentioned, highs potentially for some of us reaching 13 degrees. Looking ahead to Monday, a little bit more breeze across the whole country, so that hopefully will break up some of the cloud across England and Wales, and hopefully more of us seeing some sunshine on Monday, but still the risk of some further heavy rain across Scotland, that rain really not going very far anytime soon. That continues on to Tuesday, with potentially unsettled weather more widely for all of us on Wednesday.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be joined. Watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 o'clock on television, on radio and online in the United Kingdom and across the world. This is Mark Dolan Tonight. In my take at 10, the problematic prince strikes again. This time, Prince Andrew linked to an alleged Chinese spy. How much more harm can this man do to his family and the country? I'll be dealing with this national embarrassment in no uncertain terms in just 2 minutes' time. And if you're watching Andrew, this will have you sweating. Also, should King Charles chuck Andrew off the royal estate and out of the family? I'll be asking our top royal insider. Plus, why William and Kate are preparing to be king and queen sooner than expected. Find out why shortly. Plus, at tomorrow's newspaper front pages, a packed show, the panel awaiting as well. Lots to get through. Linda Jubilee, Lisa McKenzie and Diana Moran, the Green Goddess herself, are all on the panel with full pundit reaction to tomorrow's papers and much more. I'll be dealing with Prince Andrew in no uncertain terms, straight after the quite regal Sophia Hill.
Thank you, Mark. It's just gone 10 o'clock. I'm Sophia Hill with your latest headlines from the GB newsroom. Top story, Yvette Cooper is pledging to restore order and control to UK borders and asylum systems. The Home Secretary has been holding migration talks with her Italian counterpart in Rome in a bid to create stronger cooperation against criminal smuggling gangs. It comes as the number of people crossing the Channel in small boats this year exceeded 34,000. That's a 19% increase on the same point in 2023. She says the government is doubling down on illegal working and new technology.
Also announcing the much stronger enforcement that we've been taking in the UK, including over 13,000 returns since the election and a big increase in enforcement on illegal working and a wave of new technology, biometrics and body-worn cameras that we're introducing into immigration enforcement because the rules need to be respected and enforced.
Chinese money linked to Prince Andrew is now under investigation by MI5. As more details emerge about the embattled Duke's connection to an alleged spy. It's believed Prince Andrew invited the man in question, described as a close confidant, to Buckingham Palace, with their relationship reportedly dating back to 2012. The royal has now said he ceased all contact with the businessman in question and denied discussing anything of a sensitive nature. Meanwhile, Buckingham Palace have claimed it has no power to scrutinise the Duke's finances. 5 people have been killed in shootings in and around a migrant camp near Dunkirk, according to French media. 2 migrants and 2 security agents are among those who have died in Lune Plage. A 22-year-old man is said to have handed himself into a police station following the incidents. The Geminid meteor is expected to light up the night sky this weekend. The celestial spectacle returns every December and is one of the last of the year's major meteor showers. It was visible in the early hours of Saturday morning and was spotted in parts of Northumberland and as far south as Somerset by keen night sky photographers. The shower has been known to produce more than 150 meteors per hour at its peak, but due to light pollution and other factors, the number seen is usually considerably less. And leader of the Liberal Democrats, Ed Davey, has performed his Christmas single in Bath this afternoon. Davey was joined by Bath Philharmonia's Carers Choir at their Christmas concert at the Bath Forum. The single was written by 6 young carers and has climbed the charts since its release, with all proceeds going to the Carers Trust and Bath Philharmonia. Ed Davey has even pledged he'll do a skydive if the single gets 10,000 downloads next week. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'll be back in an hour, but now it's back to Mark.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sophia. I've got to say I'd like to contribute some money to that Sir Ed Davey Christmas carol to make it stop. OK, folks, a very busy hour to come. I'll be asking why William and Kate are preparing to be king and queen sooner than expected. But first, it might take at 10. How do you solve a problem like Prince Andrew? Oh dear, the problematic prince strikes again. It has emerged that someone described as a close confidant of the Duke of York, Prince Andrew, has been banned from entering the United Kingdom on national security grounds, amid concerns that he may have been acting as a spy for the Chinese Communist Party. Officials warned the then Home Secretary last year that the man known only as H6, John le Carré, eat your heart out, had been in a position to generate relationships between prominent UK figures and senior Chinese officials that could, and I quote, be leveraged for political interference purposes. Now, H6, shall we call him Ian? Ian was invited to the Duke's birthday party in 2020 and was told by Andrew's aide, Dominic Hampshire, that he could help in potential dealings with Chinese investors. A judge ruled that the Chinese businessman, Ian, had an unusual degree of trust from Prince Andrew. Now, we cannot verify that that is the case, and the Duke is not here to defend himself. But we do know that Andrew invited this alleged spy to Buckingham Palace, with the entrepreneur allegedly attending events not only at the King's official residence, but at St James's Palace and Windsor Castle to book. Now, the Duke's office said the following. The Duke of York followed advice from Her Majesty's government and ceased all contact with the individual after concerns were raised. The Duke met the individual through official channels, with nothing of a sensitive nature ever being discussed. He is unable to comment further on matters relating to national security. But the problem is that whilst the Duke of York is known for his rather colourful private life, earning him the nickname Randy Andy, it may be his finances rather than his libido which is of the greatest concern. After all, the Telegraph newspaper report that the royal family have taken steps over the summer to distance themselves from the Duke, with the King said to have axed his £1 million annual living allowance and his security detail. It's not known, therefore, how the Duke is paying for his upkeep at the posh Royal Lodge on the Windsor estate. Now, the journalist Andrew Lowney has spent the last 4 years working on a new book about the Duke and has spoken of his concerns about the lack of transparency around Andrew's finances. What's going on? Now, this author, has said that government departments are doing anything to avoid sharing information about the Duke's business dealings, which is a problem given Andrew's friendship with an alleged Chinese spy, with Ian. Clearly, the Chinese would relish the influence of the late Queen Elizabeth's son and King Charles's brother, but what might he get in return? Now, Andrew could be as innocent as the driven snow, and there is no suggestion that he knew of Ian's alleged links to Beijing or that there was any financial relationship between them. He would no doubt deny any impropriety whatsoever. But the rap sheet against this, in my view, foolish and arrogant man grows longer by the day. There was his friendship with known paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. and that car crash Newsnight interview in which he claimed to have a disorder in which he doesn't sweat. Well, he is sweating now as questions emerge about his friendship circle. That's not a euphemism, by the way. This is a man who settled out of court to the tune of millions against his accuser, Virginia Giuffre, who said that she was forced to have relations with him when she was just 17 years old, which, let me be clear, the prince strongly denies. Fair enough. But either way, like his nephew Harry, Andrew is a bad headline machine and a total liability. To make matters worse, Andrew is reportedly considering writing a book. Well, frankly, that's good news, as I'm a bit low on loo roll at the moment, and I could do with a doorstep. To be fair, it might shift a few copies in the children's section of Waterstones. Amid the speculation, what is abundantly clear is that Prince Andrew lacks wise judgment and has the worst possible taste in friends. Not just this alleged Chinese spy, our good friend Ian, but the aforementioned Jeffrey Epstein, at whose vast Florida mansion Andrew spent weeks. Now, that was before the shocking revelations about Big Jeff actually emerged. But, notwithstanding that, Andrew even met Epstein after he was released from prison following convictions for child prostitution. The two men were pictured in December 2010. There, you'll see that photo there. Pictured in December 2010, strolling together in Central Park when Andrew was visiting New York City. How romantic. Now, the prince severed all ties with Epstein after that, but by then, the damage was done. And damage is this guy's middle name, having brought embarrassment and scandal on his own family and the country, seemingly without an ounce of contrition. Our modernising dynamic king, Charles III, wants to have a slimmed-down monarchy. What a great idea. Well, the first lump of unwanted fat he should get rid of is his brother Andrew. How do you solve a problem like Prince Andrew? What should the king do? Let me know your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say. First up, tonight's top pundits. TV fitness legend and the Green Goddess herself, Diana Moran, respected academic and political commentator Dr. Lisa McKenzie, and leading journalist and communications advisor Linda Jubilee. OK, well, listen, I mean, you want to get rid of all the royals, don't you, Lisa?
I've got a perfect answer to the question.
Go for it.
The question is, what do we do with a problem like Prince Andrew? Guillotine.
Wow, is that a bit harsh?
No.
That's a little brutal?
He's a greedy, stupid man. And actually, I do wonder if he's not the only...
He speaks well of you, you know.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he does.
You're off his Christmas card list now.
I think I'm probably too old for him.
I don't think you could resist. You could resist your charms. But I mean, the point is that the guy hasn't broken a single law. OK, a lot of the issues that are sort of laid at his door are speculation and hearsay, aren't they?
No, they are not. We don't know what he has done. We know that he's been protected, he's been looked after all his life. Is there any dodgy bloke in the world he hasn't been friends with? You know, it's a Chinese spy this week. It was a American billionaire paedophile, a few years ago. Who's next? He's a greedy man that likes free things.
Now, Linda, you covered the royal beat for many years on Fleet Street.
I did.
This is an ongoing headache for the king, isn't it?
The thing I think that's really dangerous for the royal family isn't that everyone's going to be up in arms and really angry and really on top of this story in that way. He's a laughing stock. He's turned this into a satire. Yep. People are laughing about the royal family and the goings-on at Buckingham Palace. Not specifically, of course, about King Charles. They won't do that. Or definitely not Kate Middleton, who has had such a stellar year, an incredibly brave woman. But he has exposed them to ridicule. That's really the most damaging thing.
Isn't it difficult? Because you look at his siblings, Diana. You look at Anne, who is a chip off her mother's block.
Wonderful.
A dignified, hard-working woman.
You bet.
Then you've got Edward, who is also an enterprising chap and acquits himself well, happily married, lovely family. Yeah. Then you've got our king, who has devoted his life to public service. What went wrong with Andrew?
Well, I just don't know, because one of my sons was at Dartmouth, a midshipman with Prince Andrew for those 3 or so years, and I assumed he was a right-on guy.
And was your son under Prince Andrew at any point?
No, they were alongside one another. They were midshipmen together. They were equals. But what amazes me is why... You know, there's so much security, as we know, around the royal family. Why isn't somebody advising him all the time, pulling him up, taking him away?
Because I think he's beyond that. You look at the interview with Emily Maitlis. The palace didn't even know it was going to happen. You know, he's just a loose
And is it
cannon.
true that they thought it had gone well at the end of the interview?
He did.
He did, didn't he?
And his comms person did.
Yeah.
They both did in their own little bubble.
Although, I mean, he's not here to defend himself, Diana. I mean, is this trial by media to a certain extent? Am I guilty of that with the Take It 10 you've just listened to?
Well, we've certainly added to it by talking about it now. But, I mean, he just seems so foolish that he's just going from one catastrophe to another.
You almost couldn't make it up. It's almost like some kind of, I don't know, In the Thick of It, Buckingham Palace style. It's some kind of horrendous sitcom.
OK, well, we're no doubt going to return to this, but let me tell you that even the government have got involved and they're concerned about our national security. Here's the Home Secretary addressing the Commons this week.
Well, our security and intelligence agencies are continually vigilant for any threat to UK national security, whether that be around foreign influence, whether it be around espionage, whether it be around any security threat. And so, of course, we won't hesitate to take action in individual cases or more widely wherever any challenge arises.
Home Secretary there, not actually addressing the Commons, but perhaps on holiday in front of a French chateau. I hope she had a good time. Listen, folks, it is time now for the Great British Giveaway and your chance to become our biggest ever winner with an incredible £50,000 in tax-free cash. It's a huge sum of money, of course, that could make your new year your best year ever. Here are the details.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Brilliant stuff. Really good luck with that. Well, we have a developing story. Producer Melissa can inform me that, yes, the former England manager, Gareth Southgate, is to be knighted in the New Year's honours list. He'll be Sir Gareth Southgate. We'll get reaction at 10:30. I'm going to give you an early steer. I'm not happy about that. What's he won exactly? But next up, should King Charles chuck Andrew off the royal estate and out of the family? I'll be asking our top royal insider. Plus, why William and Kate are preparing to be king and queen sooner than expected. Find out why next.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
This is Miss Universe fans hailing the end of wokeness and crediting the Trump effect after a biological woman, there's still some of them around apparently, has won the 2024 crown. She's Miss Denmark, because obviously the last decade, you know, it's just been a beast transgender smurfs from Papua New Guinea. They're the only people allowed to win any beauty contest, you know what I mean? You're not allowed to have any...
Some of the trans women have won these. You definitely wouldn't say no.
Honestly, I've seen some, but I've seen some of them that didn't, and some that were clearly just there out of
have there been more than one trans woman? I didn't realise this.
Yeah.
Okay,
I've got a chart at home. This one isn't trans. Victoria Kjær Thielvig, 21 of Denmark. Everything about that description says attractive.
Nazis. Okay, yeah. I have seen pictures of her. She is very attractive.
Yes.
She is.
Yes.
I don't know exactly how to put it, but she is kind of not retro or vintage or so. She's quite an old-fashioned notion of beauty, like just absolutely ice blue eyes.
No penis.
Absolutely extraordinary, clear skin and gorgeous blonde hair. I mean, it's absolutely kind of mid-70s.
Well, apparently the sanity's returned to the beauty pageant industry, so they can get back to sexualising 4-year-olds and promoting anorexia like they used to. So
there is that.
She will earn an estimated $250,000 annual salary working full-time as Miss Universe, and will live in a luxurious New York City apartment as she carries out her duties, which involve glass coffee tables and rich Saudi businessmen.
Glass coffee tables. And visiting other planets and solar systems and constellations, I would imagine, in Miss Universe.
Being concerned about animals.
Yes, absolutely, and wanting to bring about world peace. I miss those days.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
It is time now for US News with the Queen of American showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield. Kinsey, it's good to see you. And the big royal story is, of course, Prince Andrew and his links to an alleged Chinese spy. A major headache for the king.
I mean, absolutely. I agree with you. I think this story proves that Prince Andrew does not have the best judgment and continues to be a liability to the monarchy, but potentially now to the government. I mean, that is the newest addition that I think is rocking the royal watching community. Mark, under extreme circumstances, Prince Andrew's title as the Duke of York could be removed by an act of Parliament. And maybe that is the next step here if we do really believe that he is a liability when it comes to secrets, when it comes, this is an extreme word, but espionage, any sort of category or any sort of active espionage. As far as the palace is concerned, they should maintain transparency with the public, reaffirming that the monarchy values accountability and integrity. But the king put in a tough position after a very rough year.
Does Charles have a well of goodwill towards his brother Andrew? Is there anything in the bank there?
I think that the king made a promise to the late Queen Elizabeth that he would take care of his brother. And I think that the king is an honorable man. And I don't think that he has any intention to break that promise to Queen Elizabeth.
What do you think the issue is with Prince Andrew? Because I don't want this to be character assassination. In my take of 10, I've just cast doubt on his wisdom and perhaps his intelligence. But what's your appraisal of Prince Andrew, the man?
No accountability. He's had no accountability for most of his life. He hasn't been humbled for most of his life. I think that it's ego. He's driven by his own ego and entitlement. And I agree with you when it comes to perhaps he's not the sharpest tool in the shed, but he does need to settle down because he's jeopardizing the future of the monarchy, a monarchy that is very fragile right now due to health concerns.
Most definitely. The king, though, as active as ever, and he meets one of the most important businessmen in the world. What's the story?
Mark, this is even funnier when you think about the fact that King Charles does not own a cell phone. So on Thursday, he visited Apple's London offices to meet employees, members of their creative community, and students who have learned skills like coding from educational programs supported by Apple and King Charles's The King's Trust. The king himself, you and I, glued to our cell phones 24 hours a day, but not King Charles. He says he has an army of staffers around him ready to connect him to whoever he needs to talk to, whenever he needs to talk to them. No wonder he always seems so at peace, though. It's because he doesn't have a cell phone. I think we all might be a little less weird if we didn't have our cell phones all the time.
It would be very healing for the world. Listen, I don't wish to cast aspersions on the king, but he can't work a fountain pen, so he would struggle with an iPhone, wouldn't he? Can we talk about William and Kate preparing to be king and queen sooner than expected? It's a somber story, but Vanity Fair are running it, so it's not without credibility, is it?
Look, it's common knowledge that King Charles is not going to have as long of a reign as the late Queen Elizabeth. According to the palace, he's currently very courageously battling an unknown type of cancer. I very much like Sally Bedell Smith, the source quoted here, but I doubt she has access to King Charles's medical records. And I think debating any type of countdown is morbid and vulgar. And of course, it's the Americans that are doing it. So I'd like to apologize on behalf of my entire country for starting this conversation, because I think it's kind of gross. And obviously, we did not learn our lesson throughout the Where is Kate debacle that happened earlier this year.
They can hang their heads in shame. Last but not least, Donald Trump is planning to do a lot in the White House over the next 4 years. He's going to cut taxes. He's going to close the southern border. Does he have any other plans?
Mark, are you as excited about this as I am? Trump said earlier this week that the Republican Party will use its best efforts to eliminate daylight savings time. He says it's inconvenient and very costly to our nation. I mean, in some health groups, including the American Medical Association and American Academy of Sleep Medicine, have said that it's time to do away with the time change. If we stick with standard time, it aligns better with the sun and human biology. So there you go. I vote yes.
Definitely. I mean, what's the mood in the country? Have the reverberations sort of settled down? Have people accepted now that Trump is here for 4 years?
They really have. The conversation is truly around how does the Democratic Party get, how do they figure out what went wrong and how do they find their next leader and how do they communicate better with normal people, real people, because that is really the feeling that they lost the election because they just weren't talking to, the everyday people. When you're bringing Cardi B on the stage and you're bringing all these celebrities on the stage that are just not relatable, how do they realign and reset?
Well, Kinsey, you will always have my vote. This is the last Mark Dolan tonight on a Saturday of the year, so I look forward to seeing you in January. Can I wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year?
I love you, Mark Dolan. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
You're making me blush. There you go. And Mrs. Dolan is absolutely boiling with rage and consumed with jealousy, as she should. Keep her on her toes. Kinsey, thank you so much for that. The papers are in. Full pundit reaction next.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead to Sunday, it's a return to the rather grey skies for most of us. The wettest of the weather will be up across parts of Scotland. And for all of us, thanks to the winds coming in from the Atlantic, it will be feeling a good deal milder than it has been of late. As we return to Saturday evening, we will hang on to some clear skies initially across the far southeast, but cloud and rain across the west will spread across all parts during the course of the night. So we end the night really rather cloudy, some hill fog around, with the wettest of the weather really across the west. But note the temperatures, most of us seeing temperatures no lower than around 8 or 9 degrees. So it'll be a mild start to Sunday, but a rather cloudy one. We may well just see a few glimmers of sunshine across the far southeast and across East Anglia too, where further west across England we could see some spots of rain across the moors, the Welsh mountains too. Similar story for northern England, some rain across the Pennines, maybe also the mountains of Northern Ireland. But the wettest of the weather really will be across parts of western Scotland, where across the east of Scotland we may again just see a few glimmers of sunshine. And really, as we go through the course of the day, very little changes. The wettest of the weather always across more western and northern areas of the country, with that rain turning increasingly heavy and persistent later on across northwestern Scotland and combined with a strengthening wind here. Still always a chance of a few glimmers of sunshine the further east you are, and for all of us a milder feeling day, as I mentioned, highs potentially for some of us reaching 13 degrees. Looking ahead to Monday, a little bit more breeze across the whole country, so that hopefully will break up some of the cloud across England and Wales, and hopefully more of us seeing some sunshine on Monday, but still the risk of some further heavy rain across Scotland. That rain really not going very far anytime soon. That continues on to Tuesday with potentially unsettled weather more widely for all of us on Wednesday.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Loving your company tonight. Here are tomorrow's papers. Sebastian, I mean, quite seriously, he hasn't worked on the show for months. Well done, Sebastian. You pulled it out the fire. Only pulling your leg, big guy. Now listen, I'll take it up with you at the GB News Christmas party. Oh no, that's just passed. Right, The Observer, let's get on with it, shall we? We're on telly, folks. PM condemned for allowing a new wave of slum housing. Labour has been accused of allowing developers to build a new generation of slum homes by converting office blocks into flats without planning permission. The controversial projects will boost Keir Starmer's drive to build 1.5 million new homes in England, but have been labelled a free-for-all for developers. Their bodies turned black from the chlorine. Voices of Syria's victims. Devastating story, that one. Sunday Express now. As global Britain joins £12 trillion group of nations, Boris warns of Brexit threat from Sir Keir Starmer. Boris Johnson says the government must be stopped from reshackling the country to Brussels, with a major trade deal entered tomorrow, set to bring a £2 billion a year post-Brexit boost. Sunday Times, Andrew's Chinese spy confidant met 2 former prime ministers. Reforms money man to link up with Musk, and it'll be bigger than Nuremberg, the hidden archive of Assad's atrocities. The Telegraph now, Sunday Telegraph, Chinese influencer at heart of Whitehall, and water bills must rise by a fifth to fix a broken system. Families will be hit with a sharp rise of at least 20% in water bills to fix Britain's broken sewage system. Writing for the Sunday Telegraph, Steve Reid, the Environment Secretary, acknowledged that people will be angry as average charges are expected to go up by £100 over the next 5 years. Wes Streeting vows to root out NHS anti-Semitism. Mail on Sunday now. Starmer's surrender squad to undo Brexit. Sir Keir Starmer was tonight accused of forming an EU surrender squad to reverse Brexit. An all-powerful team of more than 100 civil servants is being assembled to run the UK's negotiations with Brussels, with insiders claiming its purpose is to negate the historic 2016 vote to leave the EU. And Daily Star Sunday, homes under the Hammer Star attacked by a ghoul. A room with a woo! Telly legend Martin Roberts has told how he fled a spooky house while filming Homes Under the Hammer after he came under attack. He told the crew, "Let's get out of here." Was it a creepy ghost? Was it a creepy ghost? Or was it Nick Knowles without his makeup? Who knows? We'll never find out, Ryan. That's me in trouble. Folks, Very, very excited to have with me my top pundits this evening. And we've rolled out the red carpet, let me tell you, because we have the green goddess herself, TV fitness legend Diana Moran, the highly respected academic and political commentator Dr. Lisa McKenzie, and leading journalist and communications advisor Linda Jubilee. So many stories to get through. Linda, do you think Keir Starmer is going to reverse Brexit?
No. I think what he wants to do, as he says, is do a bit of a reset and have a closer relationship with Europe. But I don't think he wants to rejoin. I just don't.
Would
think
you accept free movement among younger people? Would you accept stronger fishing rights for European vessels?
I think I'd want to see more free movement amongst younger people. Some of my children feel very strongly about this. For example, one of my sons got his master's at the University of Constance. So I understand their desire to be in Europe, and they've got many European friends. They want to be able to travel backwards and forwards. The fishing rights is a much more complicated situation, and that would require, you know, quite some investigation.
But do we really want to undo all that hard work? I mean, we had years and years
really.
of hell, the Brexit deadlock, Diana.
Yeah.
We're out. Why don't we just make a fist of it?
Quite agree
That's
with
what
you.
I think, yeah.
That's what I feel. And then as regards the fishing, we want the fish here in the UK.
Yeah.
Why should it go off elsewhere?
Well, that's my concern, and I understand that youngsters would like the ability to go and live in Paris and Rome and all the rest of it, but the issue you've got is it's death by 1,000 cuts, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, you accept that free movement with the under-30s, or what about people in their 30s and 40s? And it's like, for me, my concern is with Brussels, give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
That's what I feel too.
So therefore, I mean, would you accept a bit of free movement for youngsters or not?
I think for the youngsters, I've had grandchildren and children of my own who have moved around and had terrific experience. But you've got to be careful. Where are we going to start or finish all of this?
Yeah, I mean, Lisa, you, of course, work with a lot of young people. You're a university professor. So what do you think about some of these concessions being proposed?
I think that some of the concessions, I think the free movement for younger people, I think that would be a good one. I do agree with that. Also, there's the artists, sort of musicians, when they sort of travel around Europe, they're getting sort of stung a bit. So I think that would.
Sir Elton John's not happy about that situation.
No, but I also know some sort of less wealthy musicians that is.
Well, no, I think he's speaking out on their behalf because he heard the stories.
Yeah.
But can you understand why my viewers and listeners, some of them who might have voted Leave in 2016, are worried about this?
Listen, everybody where I live voted to leave.
Yeah.
You know, I live in the East Midlands. I live in Nottinghamshire. We voted to leave. So of course. And I think trying to unpick Brexit where it is now would be a massive mistake for any government, because, you know, people were very emotional about it. It became a real sort of political issue. Boris Johnson got voted in, you know, with a landslide because of it. So I think any government or any politician that wants to start to unpick that would be a massive mistake.
And whatever happened, it's happened.
Yeah, exactly.
I was once given really good advice from a very senior executive. Make the decision and make it work.
But also, I mean, is it just me? I voted Remain, but where is the Brexit disaster? We've had higher investment than France, Germany, Italy since we left. We've tracked pretty equally or even had more economic growth than the Eurozone. Don't forget that Germany flirts with recession every 10 minutes. Where is this great Brexit disaster?
Yeah.
I think it's been overcooked, and I'm surprised that supporters of Brexit don't actually offer a bit more, support for the project. It seems like everyone's thrown the towel in a bit, Lisa.
I don't think they've thrown the towel in. I think that the cost of living crisis has sort of really
swamped it.
It's swamped it.
And the pandemic, I suppose.
Yeah, but I think more actually the cost of living crisis.
Right.
I think, you know, some of the stories tonight are about water bills going up, electricity's going up again. You know, it looks like we might even go into a recession. People are very frightened at the moment about their own income.
Does that tell us that Brexit is actually a sideshow? It's not a big focus for people, in fact.
Yeah, I would say now people have moved on.
Yeah,
I think so.
People take the view, we're out, let's make a success of it. Well, what about those water bills, Lisa? This could be water bills rising by a fifth to fix a broken system. people are already struggling to heat their homes, put petrol in the car, food on the table,
on top of it.
clothe their kids.
Electricity's going up again. I mean, I've just been told that mine's going up again.
Yeah, and then the train prices go up, the buses.
The buses are going up in January, I think,
January.
a pound. That's a lot of money.
The cap's been lifted,
Actually, that's a lot of money. A pound, £2 a day is a lot of money for people.
These water companies, though, nearly every single one of them has been very, very negligent with how they've maintained the infrastructure. Where I live, which is a small town, Marlow, in Buckinghamshire, where there is a constant problem with sewage, literally sewage on the streets. I mean, Thames Water are sick of hearing from me.
Yeah.
But still nothing is done.
Reform.
This has been going on month after month after month.
It was actually... Our water systems were a disaster when they were in public hands as well. Why can't Britain do infrastructure properly, Lisa?
Do you know what? I don't know. I mean, yesterday I found out that up in Gateshead, the main artery from Gateshead to Newcastle, that sort of road is actually falling to pieces, which means people are not... I mean, if there's any...
It's a metaphor there, right?
It's a symbol. It's very symbolic, isn't it? The north is literally crumbling. And I think... I don't know whether this government has got the nerve or the will to actually do these infrastructure projects that needs... You know, in 1945, we came out of the Second World War, masses of debt, very broken... Europe was broken, and yet we'd got governments that worked to sort of build things, but to build housing, to make sure that people had got a decent standard of living.
Well, do Labour deserve some support for the genuine political will to build more houses?
Yes, I think they do.
Of course they deserve support because we all know we want those extra houses. We've got children, we've got grandchildren. We know that they need to have accommodation. But I really worry about some of these policies here in The Observer when it talks about the change in the planning requirements for building.
It means you can turn an office block into flats, which many are arguing would be essentially slum accommodation.
Yeah, because you need to change not just the planning permission that building was given has to change, but it's not just a piece of paper. The whole building has to change in order to make it fit for residential
accommodation. And probably what it means is you'll have rooms with no windows, I would have thought.
Yeah, and there could be fire hazards. Yeah, they could not reach the baseline fire requirements.
The standard, again, it's about standards, isn't it? If you think back to, Grenfell, for example, shouldn't we be... You know, we always say lessons learned.
Yeah, but we don't ever learn the lessons.
I mean, Linda, I thought I was in The Observer reading about the Tory government because it says PM condemned for allowing a new wave of slum housing, basically handing developers a blank cheque. You might expect that from a Conservative Prime Minister, but this is Keir Starmer. Is it because he is the first Prime Minister that is serious about building more houses?
I mean, that could be part of it. It's terribly, terribly difficult to reform planning regulations in this country. I was on the board of CPRE London. That's the main planning charity in this country. And these planning regulations are actually stymieing any kind of development. So you have to be very, very, very determined to get through them. But you do have to reform them properly so that sites, greenfield sites, not greenfield in the top grade, but greyfield sites, for example. Brownfield sites have to be detoxified. Commercial sites have to be changed properly. All of that stuff has to happen. And honestly, a journey begins with a single step. He has started.
It takes so long.
If anybody,
it takes a long time.
If any of the viewers, and I know probably lots of them have, lived in Labour-controlled areas, they will know that blank cheques have been given to developers for many years.
It's not just a Tory thing.
No,
it's a brown envelope.
Yeah, it's not a Tory thing.
It's a brown envelope.
It's not a Tory thing. It's a housing crisis thing.
And Diana, you know as well as I do that Brits need somewhere to live. Is building over the green belt and some of our most beautiful countryside a price worth paying to tackle the crisis?
I think it probably is, so that ordinary people can get on,
But the only problem is when that land is gone, it's gone, isn't it? You don't get it back. Are you really willing to sacrifice, this green and pleasant land
you have
for some faceless new city?
To be honest, we have changed as a nation. we have so many more people here now that need to be housed.
OK, well, I think that's a fair point. Briefly.
But I think it's like everything else. The very first thing we should do is make sure we change the planning permission for commercial retail properties. We detoxify brownfield sites. We can build on greyfield sites. Yes. We need to approach all of those in order.
Yeah. OK, well, listen, thank you for that. My brilliant pundits are on fire tonight. I think you'll agree. More to come, including news that Gareth Southgate is to be knighted. We'll bring reaction. I personally am not happy. I'll tell you why. Plus, some personal news for Eamon Holmes, by the looks of it. More on that next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Love a bit of baking and share some hot tips. We're delighted to be joined by our baking extraordinaire, Matty Edgell, who won Great British Bake Off last year. Woo! Welcome. Congratulations as well. I'm sure you're sick of being congratulated.
And there's a nice reminder.
No, you like all the glory.
Yeah.
What was it like winning the Great British Bake Off? What's last year been like for you?
Winning I was not expecting to win. At any point until they said my name.
You're a very humble
nice
guy.
Surprise. No, I was just
really
in touch with reality. I wasn't.
Was it quite a close race throughout then?
Yeah, I considered myself the underdog throughout. I think the first week I turned around after the showstopper and kind of saw how good everyone was, and then looked at mine and thought, how have I got here? And that kind of theme followed through.
But then that surely like an underdog. You on.
Yeah,
it did.
Actually,
I'm going to get better throughout this.
Yeah, I think it made me kind of like really tune into the feedback that they was giving me and trying to embed that throughout. So that's probably why.
Could you feel yourself improving as the series went on?
Definitely, and I think also like kind of simultaneously my confidence improved at the same time, and then that like little bit of belief in myself probably helped out as well.
What was your strength? Biscuits, cake, bread?
I think cake's my strength.
Cake.
I think cake, typically if you start baking, that's probably where you start, isn't it? So that was what I knew most.
How did you start baking?
I've been asked this so many times since...
You don't know?
I attribute it to my nan.
Sweet.
But yeah, I would say, I think most people probably attribute it to like a grandparent or something that they maybe done with like their parents when they was growing up. So that's I'll give it to my nan.
Or the major lockdown baking boom.
Yeah, banana bread.
Everybody
all over the place, isn't it? It's good.
Yeah, it's really good. I love a banana bread, even now.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Too bad is what
Gareth Southgate has been knighted, or will be knighted. Reaction on that in just a moment, but we've got more front pages. Oh, let's do some emails. Thank you very much. Melissa, you're absolutely right. Let's go for this. Leslie says, we have so many more people that need to be deported, not housed. Hands off our green belt. Leave our countryside alone, says Sharon. Richard says they're building for all the migrants, including the illegal ones. Starmer couldn't plan a Christmas party. Shutty has messaged in about the water companies. Why can't they reduce the standing charges? They are 25% of my energy bill. Richard says, Mark, in the 1960s, British pop groups had no problem performing in Europe. The early Beatles were resident in Hamburg, and we were not then in the common market. No to any concessions on fishing, says Richard. And how about this from Alan? People can still travel to Europe, you numpty. People can still get a visa. No, That's what Alison says. No, they will come here and never go back. A lot more want to come here. And what about the illegal immigrants who are all mostly under 30? And last but not least, isn't free movement for the under 30s discrimination against the over 30s? Listen, how about this? Gareth Southgate is actually, let's go for the Sun now. Sun on Sunday, front page. Here we go. How about this? Exclusive Stars plans. Eamon I'll wed Katie. Eamon Holmes has told pals that he plans to marry girlfriend Katie Alexander. The GB News star, who is currently divorcing Ruth Langsford, spoke openly of his intentions in front of psychotherapist Katie. She wore a sparkling ring on her engagement finger on a trip to Paris. Wonderful stuff. And that's a lovely story, isn't it, Linda? Demonstrating that whatever age you are, and if you've come out of a difficult divorce situation, you can always find love again.
Yeah, true love always finds a way, as they say.
Isn't it?
You can see the ring. You actually can.
And I don't know what my view is. I think Eamon is one of the most eligible bachelors in the country, right? He's a very funny man. He's an experienced broadcaster. He's had a career in showbiz. Well, I mean, I just think it's put me in a good mood. It's actually a rare good news story, don't you think?
Yeah, you know, if two people have found love and they're happy, good luck to them.
Yeah, you can see the ring.
Nobody's being hurt. It's a good, nice story.
Well, is it love later in life? It's possible, Diana.
Oh, very much so.
It's important, isn't it?
Yes, of course it is. I've just come off a Saga cruise.
Is that right?
And there are lots and lots of gorgeous couples who have met in their later years, having a lovely life.
Really?
Yes.
Do they get married?
Some of them get married, most of them don't.
Yeah, most of them don't. Most older people that meet a partner or fall in love don't actually get married.
No.
There you go. Well, listen, I'm delighted for Eamon. Whether or not that story is true, wish him every happiness. Of course, Eamon, the big star of GB News Breakfast, alongside the wonderful Isabel. Now, Gareth at Southgate is to get knighted in the New Year's honours list. Gareth follows the footsteps of Sir Bobby Robson and Sir Ralph Ramsey in being knighted for services to sport. The letters are understood to have been sent out already by the Honours Committee. Does he deserve it, Lisa?
Does he deserve? I don't know. What do you have to do to get a knighthood? And
well, I think it would be nice if you were the England manager to win something.
But what does it mean anyway? I mean, you know, you get a knighthood. People have to say. Do they have to say?
Well, I think what it means is yes, he becomes a knight of the realm. He becomes his wife becomes lady, but it means you're the very best at what you do. You've made a huge contribution to the country.
I think a lot of football fans would perhaps say that about Gareth Southgate. He did sort of change the team over.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
But yeah, he didn't win anything.
Well, no. If you look at the stats, No, he won quite a lot. If you actually look at the figures, he won a lot and he drew a reasonable percentage, and he lost. Unfortunately, he lost when it mattered because the other team on that day were better, although England played a really good match. But the thing is, a knighthood isn't just given for one single thing. So when Michael Fabricant was with us on the sofa here, he talked about it. I didn't just get the knighthood because I was a backbencher for 30 years. I got the knighthood because of all the things I did for business. And Gareth Southgate has actually been a bit of a role model for people. It's not just did he coach people to get them over the line and get some silverware in the cupboard. He actually represented something to people that I think did matter, and I think that he did deserve it.
Well, I don't think the equivalent of Gareth Southgate, Diana, would be knighted in Italy, where football is about winning or nothing else, or in Germany, or in the United States. And I just worry about the messaging of knighting someone that's literally won nothing.
I would prefer to see somebody knighted who's done something really great for human beings in the medical world, perhaps.
The cancer breakthrough.
All that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's what I...
Well, what about Paul McCartney, who sold 1 billion records with the Beatles and changed the world? I mean, that's what a knight looks like, isn't it? Not a football manager that's got us to the semi-finals. Am I being harsh? Am I being a bit harsh, or Gareth? Because I just don't like the messaging. I think that the knighthood should go to the very best people.
Yeah, but there's
at the very top of their game.
Plenty of knighthoods.
Give it to Sir Alex Ferguson, of course, because he's the greatest club manager in English football history.
But plenty of knighthoods happen for people that we would regard, perhaps, as a little bit mediocre. That happens.
Oh dear.
Like
OK,
who?
folks,
Name
well, listen,
someone.
no one on Headliners is mediocre. Headliners is next. And Melissa, who's in the hot seat tonight? It is Steve N. Allen. How excited. Steve, what have you got for us, big guy?
Well, I'm changing the plans. We're going to try and get to the bottom of the news story, which is why have the police taped off your neck as a crime scene? We'll look more into that. But also, it'll be me and Cressida and Lewis getting to the bottom of the stories that we're dealing with tomorrow. £6 billion wasted by the government on something you won't believe. If you're a pensioner, please watch, because that £6 billion could have kept you warm. Instead, try and use the anger that you'll get by watching that. There is a solution to the migrant hotel problem, which you won't like. And there is a story in tomorrow's newspapers about dolphins that are on drugs. Find out more on the way after 11.
Brilliant stuff. Can't wait for that. Thank you to Sebastian, to Melissa, to Harry, and indeed, of course, to Mariana. And my brilliant pundits tonight, Harvey on digital. What a team effort. We're back tomorrow for the last Mark Dolan Tonight of the year. Don't miss it.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead to Sunday, it's a return to the rather grey skies for most of us. The wettest of the weather will be up across parts of Scotland. And for all of us, thanks to the winds coming in from the Atlantic, it will be feeling a good deal milder than it has been of late. As we return to Saturday evening, we will hang on to some clear skies initially across the far southeast, but cloud and rain across the west will spread across all parts during the course of the night. So we end the night really rather cloudy, some hill fog around, with the wettest of the weather really across the west. But note the temperatures, most of us seeing temperatures no lower than around 8 or 9 degrees. So it'll be a mild start to Sunday, but a rather cloudy one. We may well just see a few glimmers of sunshine across the far southeast and across East Anglia too, where further west across England we could see some spots of rain across the moors, the Welsh mountains too. Similar story for Northern England, some rain across the Pennines, maybe also the mountains of Northern Ireland. But the wettest of the weather really will be across parts of Western Scotland, where across the east of Scotland we may again just see a few glimmers of sunshine. And really, as we go through the course of the day, very little changes. The wettest of the weather always across more western and northern areas of the country, with that rain turning increasingly heavy and persistent later on across northwestern Scotland, and combined with a strengthening wind here. Still always a chance of a few glimmers of sunshine the further east you are, and for all of us a milder feeling day, as I mentioned, highs potentially for some of us reaching 13 degrees. Looking ahead to Monday, a little bit more breeze across the whole country, so that hopefully will break up some of the cloud across England and Wales, and hopefully more of us seeing some sunshine on Monday, but still the risk of some further heavy rain across Scotland, that rain really not going very far anytime soon. That continues on to Tuesday, with potentially unsettled weather more widely for all of us on Wednesday.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the big good luck.
I'm Nana Acquia. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
The way in which children are being driven online because we're not taking them seriously offline. And what we're tending to do is seeing the problems entirely on the social media, forgetting the fact that we've given up on children being able to work independently and play independently, outdoors, we've basically created a world where the digital bedroom has become this go-to area for a lot of young kids. We've given up on old-fashioned parenting, where we try to cultivate their resilience. And now we blame everything, all the problems that occur online. You have to remember that if you take something like bullying, bullying doesn't have to only take place online. It happens all the time, offline, in everyday life. But yet we only see the problem on the social media, and there's this obsession with the social media where every single problem that afflicts childhood is blamed on it. And that distracts us from actually understanding what we're doing wrong with children. So for me, and I hate when I see children with digital technology, when I see them with smartphones. I'm not a fan. I'm much more concerned about the fact that parents use their digital phones when they're having dinner with their kids and giving very bad examples in relation to that. But the real problem, it seems to me, is offline, and that's why we've got to crack the issue. So for me, the banning issue is entirely a headline-grabbing political gambit. And I think that we should be much more focused on the real problems rather than delude ourselves that anything will improve.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, it's 11 o'clock, which means it's time for tomorrow's newspapers tonight. Join us over the next hour to find out what the government has spent £6 billion of your money on, the new plan to fix migration that's like playing Monopoly in reverse, and is Donald Trump the new Churchill? They're both famously called a woman ugly, so maybe. I'm Stephen Allen, and tonight we've got a showbiz lineup. A woman who'll be on Strictly one day, Cressida Wetton, and a man who'll be on Lily Phillips one day, Lewis Schaefer. Tonight, they'll be taking you through tomorrow's top stories. This is